here. I'm up here to tell the truth. You can ask me anything you want. I'm gonna tell the truth. How it was, whether it hurts me, whether it helps me. I don't care about that.
Markeith Lloyd having one more outburst as he was escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs and foot shackles, looking at the sheriff in chief, yelling about oppression, ball and chain, and the system.
Guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
This is Markeith Lloyd, and he is before the court, facing charges of murder after being accused of murdering an Orlando police officer in cold blood, whom he shot down in a Walmart parking lot as she tried to bring him into custody. But this confrontation wasn't random. When Lieutenant Deborah Clayton crossed paths with Lloyd in January 2017, she was staring down a fugitive already wanted for another killing. Just weeks before, Lloyd had taken the life of his pregnant ex-girlfriend, Sade Dixon.
Take me home. This man's still trying to speed. It's raining outside, y'all. It's still trying to speed. Look.
Take me home.
For real, you're not about to kill me and the baby. This man, he has to be stopped.
See, they just stopped.
But no, you need a greater force than that. I'm not going to live past 25. I'm not going to make it. Not like this. I don't know what I was getting myself into. What I signed up for.
A jealous Lloyd had planned his move after an argument with Sade.
I was gonna say something, but I didn't say anything. A queen don't dress like that. You're exposing yourself to the world.
We can see already that Markeith has a tendency to think he knows what's best for his romantic partners.
He arrived at Sade's home armed with a gun and opened fire. Sade, who was just 24 years old and 3 months pregnant, was struck multiple times. She died at the scene, along with her unborn child. Her brother, who tried desperately to shield her, was also shot but survived and would later testify against him.
In a chamber?
He described in detail the December night in 2016 when he says Markeith Lloyd pulled the gun and shot him and his sister. In this body cam video played in court, you can see first responders arriving at the house just after the shooting.
She's not breathing.
The two victims were down on the front porch. The video shows police pulling Stewart away from the porch.
From that night on, Lloyd was gone. He slipped into hiding, dodging law enforcement and sparking a manhunt that stretched across Orlando. Then came January 9th, 2017. A tip came in that Lloyd had been spotted at a Walmart, and Lieutenant Clayton, who was also in the same location for routine shopping, immediately she was notified, stepped into action. She found the fugitive near the store entrance, and she confronted him. But Lloyd was not ready to surrender yet, so he drew his weapon and began to fire at the officer. Clayton tried to run, but one of the bullets struck her, and in a moment of utter disregard for human life, Lloyd stood over her, firing again and again until she was dead. The city went into shock while police went into action immediately, launching one of the largest manhunts in Orlando history. Nine days later, they cornered Lloyd inside an abandoned house. Officers reported that even when he was discovered, he fought back, and when the struggle ended, he was beaten, bloodied, and missing an eye.
They go to the hospital after resisting arrest and getting roughed up by the police as they were trying to put the cuffs on him last night. They found him in an abandoned home, 9 days.
During his first court appearance, Lloyd's face was covered with bandages, but even in that state, Lloyd's defiance was unmistakable.
Making up like I just went in there and shot this girl, endangering my family, took my eye. They done broke my nose, broke my jaw. They did all this till I resisted, but I crawled out to the road. So how did I resist? I ain't resist. Just did that. They tried to hide it from the news people, but I'm here right now.
Throughout the proceedings, Lloyd disrupted the trial, shouting down prosecutors, talking over the judge, refusing to stay silent.
So you are refusing to discuss your initial complaint against counsel at this time, is that correct? Mr. Lloyd, watch your tone and the way you speak. Out. Out.
He hurled accusations across the room, insisting he'd been framed and that police, prosecutors, even the press were all corrupt.
The news reported I came over here, bammed on these people's door, and gunned these people down when they answered me, and that's a complete lie. Everyone seen my trial, and the investigator knew it was a lie, but they the ones reported this lie so they can put their framework in place to kill me when they run down on me. And I talked to them through my niece, and I told them, I believe y'all are trying to kill me while y'all are lying. What you lying for? They kill us for nothing. They kill us with our hands up. I'm raising the lecture back then, but somehow I have absolutely don't know nothing about. And they framed me,
Defense attorneys argued mental illness.
Markeith Lloyd has a significant delusional disorder with a psychiatric spectrum. A delusional disorder with a psychiatric spectrum. Now think back. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that there are circumstances that led to this that we have to consider now in terms of whether life or death is the appropriate sentence.
But the prosecution dismissed that claim, saying it was nothing more than an act, an attempt to escape responsibility.
Reason that he did that was because it was his full intention to end her life.
And you agree that the video shows that the defendant ran over towards her and stood over her?
I do agree with that.
And fired additional shots?
He did.
And right after that additional shot, Lieutenant Clayton's hand immediately went to her neck where that wound was located, correct?
I do agree with that.
And then came the most chilling piece of evidence. Jail recordings where Lloyd showed no remorse at all. Instead, he bragged, almost thrilled by the attention his crimes were receiving.
Write me a book.
Write you one.
Get some money. Everybody else trying to get paid off my name. Let me use my own name.
The jury listened, and the verdict was clear. Guilty. Their recommendation? Death. And then came the sentencing. In January 2017, Markeith Lloyd was officially condemned to die for the murder of Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. As deputies led him away, an angry Lloyd shouted at the courtroom.
Markeith Lloyd having one more outburst as he was escorted out of the courtroom in handcuffs and foot shackles, looking at the sheriff in chief, yelling about oppression, ball and chain, and the system.
Markeith Lloyd lashed out in fury as the court sealed his fate. But if his defiance shocked the room, what happens when a defendant doesn't just deny his crimes, but even begs the court to put him to death?
I'm seeking the death penalty. It's in my best interest, basically.
This is Stephen Lorenzo, and he's in a Tampa, Florida courtroom facing 2 counts of murder. Charges that trace back to 2003, when 2 young men, Jason Galehouse and Michael Wachholtz, were brutally tortured and killed. According to investigators, Lorenzo and his accomplice, Scott Schweiker, had crafted a horrifying plan. In graphic online chats, they described their fantasy, luring young, single gay men into Lorenzo's home, drugging them, torturing them, and ultimately turning them into what they called permanent slaves. Soon, that fantasy became reality. Police found Michael Wachholtz dead and abandoned in an apartment complex, his body wrapped in a bedsheet and stuffed into his own car. Jason Galehouse met an even grimer fate. His body was dismembered, stuffed into garbage bags, and dumped across Tampa. His remains were never found, leaving his family with nothing but unanswered questions. In court, prosecutors painted Lorenzo's crimes as deliberate, cruel, and meticulously planned.
Let's violate the world. Let's bring our fantasies to realities. I'm extreme, calculated, and loving. Easy to make them vanish with no link to us in the least.
Schweiker, who had already pleaded guilty, took the stand and admitted everything.
Online conveyed innocent messages about kidnapping, keeping, training, torturing, possibly selling off, and if we get to sell off, disposing of the individual.
When you use the term disposing of, what do you mean?
And we get into his vehicle and we start driving around the city looking for dumpsters. The first place he stops is a little white church. Looks like a little schoolhouse. And I says, I'm not dropping a body part in a church's dumpster. I'm not doing that.
He even detailed the court on what happened to Jason Galehouse. But he wasn't the only one testifying against Lorenzo. Another man, Albert Perkins, a survivor of Lorenzo's sadistic attacks, also testified against him.
His face, he didn't look the same. There's nothing behind his eyes were dark. His face was contorted, which further panicked me.
So I want to rewind.
Lorenzo, choosing to represent himself, denied it all when prosecutors introduced transcripts of his chats and Schweiker's damning confession.
That's a wonderful story. It's a very dramatic story, but it's a lie. It's a lie. Mr. Schweiker made up this story, and I made it very, very clear in my 160-something page that he made it up to appease the state because he was hoping he was going to walk from this case.
He tried to spin the story, claiming what happened that night was nothing more than a sexual encounter gone terribly wrong.
He was with the other two guys were bondage masters. I was a bondage master. Scott Schweiker was a green. He was a wannabe. So we went into the house. Mr. Galehouse agreed to be bound. He said he's been done this before.
Then came a shocking twist. Lorenzo suddenly abandoned his defense and entered a guilty plea to 2 counts of first-degree murder.
The kid started to scream and get all upset. We did the video, we put a gas mask on him because he did not want to be identified while being videotaped. So that's why the gas mask went on. We realized that the kid was going to probably call the police on all of us. So we had a powwow and we said, this kid can't leave.
And in a stunning move of defiance, he asked the court to sentence him to death.
I'm seeking the death penalty. It's in my best interest, basically.
At sentencing, the families of Jason Galehouse and Michael Wachholz, 2 mothers who had waited nearly 2 decades for justice, finally faced the man responsible. Their voices filled the courtroom with grief and rage.
And I can tell you right now, I am sick of my stomach just to have to look at your disgusting face. Yeah, that's right. Make a face, you creep. From one Italian to the other, ciao, ciao. Buona Fatino. You know what that means? Goodbye, good luck. And this mother's out to get her revenge.
And another mother, speaking of her son, delivered a heartbreaking statement.
20 years he's breathed and lived, and Michael hasn't. At taxpayers' expense, no less. It's time to end this.
Lorenzo got what he wanted as Judge Christopher Sabella sentenced him to death.
From one Italian to another. Ti condanno a morte. That translates to, I sentence you, Mr. Lorenzo, to death. That is the punishment that you deserve for these horrific crimes.
And with that ruling, Stephen Lorenzo sealed his fate, condemned to die for the brutal murders of Jason Galehouse and Michael Wachholz. Stephen Lorenzo asked for the death penalty for his crimes, but how does that compare to a defendant who slumps in court on hearing her verdict?
Guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
This is 45-year-old Diana Lovejoy, and she is in court facing charges for conspiring to kill her estranged husband, Greg Mulvihill.
Hello, this is 911.
Yes, my friend has just been shot.
It began with a bitter custody dispute. Diana and Greg were locked in a messy divorce. She accused him of abuse, claims that never held up in court. But while the legal battle played out, something darker was unfolding behind the scenes. On September 1st, 2016, Greg received a strange phone call. A male voice told him that incriminating evidence was waiting for him, taped to a utility pole on a deserted dirt trail in Carlsbad, California. Greg didn't hesitate. He grabbed a flashlight, a mini baseball bat belonging to his young son for protection, and convinced a neighbor to come along. But what Greg didn't know was that he was walking into a trap. Waiting in the shadows was Weldon McDavid Jr., a firearms instructor and Diana's secret accomplice. Armed with a rifle, McDavid was ready, and as Greg stepped into the darkened trail, a shot rang out, striking him in the side.
Do you know who shot him?
There's a guy lying down like a sniper.
A sniper? Did you see him at all?
Briefly, we saw the gun, and he shot at us like 6 or 7 times.
Miraculously, Greg survived. And once detectives pieced together the evidence, the mastermind behind the ambush became clear.
It wasn't until we got more information that it started sounding less like a random attack and more like a purposeful event.
It was his estranged wife, Diana Lovejoy. To the outside world, she was a fitness instructor, an athlete, even someone who shared her healthy recipes online.
Joy and quick meals are my specialty.
But detectives soon discovered another side, calculating, vengeful, and determined to see her husband dead. In court, prosecutors laid it all bare. Surveillance footage showed Diana purchasing the burner phone used to contact McDavid. Text messages revealed their coordination. And the motive was that Diana wanted sole custody of her son and freedom from paying spousal support. Her defense team tried to soften the story. They argued there was never an intent to kill Greg that night.
I did not intend to shoot Mr. Mulvihill. I'm sorry that I shot Mr. Mulvihill. It was an aiming error, as I stated previously.
But Greg himself, the man who survived the ambush, took the stand. His testimony cut through every defense, removing all doubt about Diana's role in what happened that night.
After the second time of shining the light on it and staring at it for a second, I realized I was looking at a barrel and a scope of a gun.
Mulvihill described a bitter custody battle in which
the verdict came back guilty.
Verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Diana Jean Lovejoy, guilty of the crime of attempted murder of Greg.
And what happened next stunned the courtroom.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
All right, we're going to need to take a break.
Diana collapsed, fainting as bailiffs rushed in to revive her.
Lovejoy was unconscious for a time, then taken to a hospital for treatment.
Even after that dramatic scene, when Diana was given the chance to address the court, her apology wasn't for Greg or for her son. It was for herself.
I still care about Greg in as much as I did love him. I loved him a lot. And I really cared about him, and I still care about Greg.
In January 2018, Diana Lovejoy was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison.
26 years to life.
26 years to life. That's how long Diana Lovejoy will spend in jail for a botched murder-for-hire plot.
Diana might have fainted when it came to dealing with the consequences of her actions, but the gang leader of a failed prison break had no remorse whatsoever for his actions.
I'm up here to tell the truth. You can ask me anything you want. I'm gonna tell the truth. How it was, whether it hurts me, whether it helps me. I don't care about that.
So this is Meekle Brady, and he is in court standing trial for one of the deadliest attempted prison escapes in North Carolina history. Back in 2013, Brady had already been sentenced to 24 years for attempted murder after firing a gun at a state trooper. But just 4 years into that sentence, he escalated from attempted killer to convicted murderer. On October 12, 2017, inside Pasquotank Correctional Institution, Brady and 3 fellow inmates launched a violent escape attempt. Their weapons were hammers and scissors, and they were ready to use them against anyone who dared to block their path.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Pasquotank Correctional Institution. We need you guys here right now.
Okay.
Beat them with hammers, stab them with scissors.
They beat them with hammers and stab them with scissors.
By the time it was over, 4 prison employees, Jeffrey Howe, Wendy Shannon, Justin Smith, and Veronica Darden, were left dead. It was described by officers as nothing short of a bloodbath.
Hammers, scissors. There was a wooden 2x4 with some nails that looked like in it.
The escape itself failed. Brady was captured at gunpoint while trying to climb the prison fence and dragged back into custody. In court, prosecutors painted Brady not just as a participant, but as the mastermind. They argued he didn't care who lived or died. Freedom was the only thing that mattered.
That man, Michael Brady, beat that man, George Midget, like he was trying to bust concrete.
After a trial that lasted over 2 weeks, it takes jurors just
35 minutes to return a verdict.
The jury unanimously found the defendant, Michael Brady, second, to be guilty of first-degree murder.
But they hardly needed to convince the jury. When Brady took the stand, he did their job for them.
I'm up here to tell the truth. You can ask me anything you want. I'm gonna tell the truth. How it was, whether it hurts me, whether it helps me. I don't care about that.
He smiled as he confessed, admitting that the brutal killings and the entire plan were his idea.
I stabbed him like 4 to 8 times. She was supposed to go down in one hit. She had turned and she started to scream. That's when I punched her in the face. When I punched her in the face is when she fell down to the floor. I hit Jeffrey Howe until he stopped moving. I don't know how many times I hit him with a hammer.
When asked if he was insane, Brady dismissed the notion outright.
Answer, you don't believe you're crazy, do you?
No, I don't think I'm crazy, no.
And you do know the difference between right and wrong?
Yes.
So you know murder is wrong?
Murder is a different name for a death, but yes.
And then came the moment of truth.
At the end of the day, escape versus these people's lives, you chose escape.
Yes.
Yeah, because your freedom meant more than their lives.
Yes.
The jury didn't deliberate long before returning a unanimous decision, guilty on all counts.
The jury unanimously found the defendant, Michael Brady, second, to be guilty of first-degree murder.
As the judge sentenced him to death, Michael Brady stood stone-faced, showing no flicker of emotion, just that same cold, unblinking stare of a man without remorse.
A jury unanimously recommended that the defendant be sentenced to death.
Michael left the courtroom shocked when he confessed to orchestrating a bloodbath, showing no remorse for the lives lost. As for this defendant, he had some moves to show the court. This is Calvin Lloyd Griffith, standing before Judge Catherine Pooler in a Miami-Dade County courtroom for a bond hearing. But this isn't just a single charge. Calvin has quite a stacked list: burglary, grand theft of a vehicle, trespassing, and on top of that, he's already on probation from a prior conviction.
Good morning. Mr. Griffin is charged with burglary, petty theft, grand theft of a vehicle, and trespass.
As the judge begins to address the charges, Calvin can't hold his tongue. He interrupts, cutting in with comments of his own, and then drops a shocking announcement right in the middle of the proceeding.
He's on probation.
He's out on probation, Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm on probation. I'm on paper.
Okay.
Offer me in here anyway because I smoke weed and cocaine.
Court staff move quickly. His microphone is cut, an effort to shut down the outburst.
So the officer...
Okay. You're Calvin Griffin?
Mr. Senator has the button pressed.
Oh, okay.
But Calvin isn't ready to be silenced. Determined to keep the spotlight, he finds another way to make himself heard. The display is impossible to ignore, yet Judge Pooler shows no reaction. Unfazed, she turns her attention back to the prosecution.
State is requesting that Your Honor set the bond, but reset the case in division tomorrow because his actions violate his probation.
Before the hearing ends, Judge Pooler gives Calvin one final instruction.
And there's a stateway order from Miami Edison Senior High. If you should get out, do not go back there. You're not a student anymore. Okay?
Griffith is then escorted out of the courtroom. But even as the next case begins, he lingers in everyone's mind, because Judge Pooler sums up what the entire courtroom was already thinking.
I want the last guy to come back and teach us how to dance.
Calvin tried to twerk his way to freedom, but this defendant walked into court on charges of stealing with evidence of the crime hanging off his back.
All right, you're charged with stealing a Dolphin jersey.
This is Nelson Walker, and he is in court, facing a charge that might quite literally be hanging on his back. But Nelson isn't accused of stealing just anything. He's accused of stealing a Miami Dolphins jersey, and not just any jersey, but the very same one he appears to be wearing right in front of the judge. The judge reads out the charge, pausing for a moment as if to ask the question everyone else in the room is already thinking. Is the evidence on display right now draped across the defendant's shoulders?
All right, you're charged with stealing a Dolphin jersey?
But Nelson doesn't flinch. He insists to the court that this jersey is not that jersey.
This ain't the one, young.
No?
No, ma'am. It show on that I ain't took no jersey. I ain't took now.
Unconvinced, the judge looks to the public defender, who raises an unusual but important issue about the case.
Being a felony, because the allegations are an observation of observing the defendant and co-defendant put on a Dolphin hats. The officer says A and then says hats, so there's an issue as to whether it's two hats or one hat.
In the end, bond is set at $5,000, largely because of Nelson's prior convictions. Weeks later, prosecutors quietly dropped the charges, and Walker walked free. But his freedom came with a price. Nelson was banned from the Dolphins stadium entirely. No games, no tailgates, no sidelines, no selfies. If he ever planned to watch the Dolphins play in person again, that dream ended the moment he walked into court wearing the alleged evidence. Nelson walks into the court wearing the shirt he was accused of stealing. But how does that compare to a defendant who attempts to make a run for it right on the steps of the court? This is Joel Delgado, who's charged with residential burglary, theft of services, and third-degree escape in Pulaski County, Arkansas. It was March 7th, 2022, and Delgado arrived at the Pulaski County Circuit Courthouse in a wheelchair, wearing a neck brace. Deputies believed he was injured. He'd claimed as much during his original arrest, and medical staff confirmed he couldn't walk. But everything in this case was about to change in seconds.
Okay. Maybe then your gas can see is hurt. Maybe you can get out for it. What you say, OJ? My suit. Hey, you see a shoe back there? Where is it?
As the deputy carefully pushes Delgado up the courthouse ramp, the scene looks routine until the very last second. The next moment would have become infamous in law enforcement circles. Panic rippled through the courthouse as Delgado sprinted away, shedding his medical disguise. The deputy's body cam catches the initial shock, then immediate chase. Delgado's deception was so complete, even seasoned officers were caught fully off guard. Now, everything became about capturing him before he vanished. The chase spilled into downtown Little Rock. Bystanders watched in disbelief as the wheelchair-bound fugitive outran uniformed deputies. Security cameras caught Delgado's unexpected agility as he dodged through alleys and side streets.
I ain't got my radio. Hey, can you call the police for me?
But Delgado's luck wouldn't hold forever as the officer tried to get help from bystanders.
This way? Got your phone? God damn.
As word spread, more people joined the search. Some pointing directions, others calling police.
Nah, which way you go?
Went straight through the alley and cut that way.
What's in your phone? My damn radio came out.
Hold on. Damn, man, if I try to come behind you and get him.
I don't know where he went.
Back at the courthouse, officials scrambled to secure the area. The wheelchair sat abandoned, neck brace discarded nearby. Evidence of Delgado's ruse was everywhere: his medical paperwork, the carefully arranged props, and now the empty street. Meanwhile, the chase continued through city blocks, each turn raising the stakes. Law enforcement coordination intensified. Radios crackled with updates, patrol cars fanned out, and every available resource joined the hunt. The escape was now a full-scale manhunt. Delgado's face flashed across every patrol screen in the city, and his time was running out. After hours on the run, Delgado's luck finally ran out. Officers cornered him just outside the city limits, exhausted and still clutching remnants of his disguise. The man who couldn't walk had just completed one of the most audacious escapes in recent memory. But the consequences were only beginning. Delgado now faces an additional charge of third-degree escape. His original charges of burglary and theft remain, but his courtroom strategy has changed dramatically. Security measures have been upgraded, protocols tightened, and every officer involved now trusts their instincts just a little bit more. Delgado tried to escape the hands of the law. But what happens when a self-acclaimed Navy SEAL is brought before the court?
I'm a Navy SEAL, sir. I'm a Navy SEAL.
This is 64-year-old Robert Stewart, standing before a judge in Broward County, Florida, facing charges of battery and violating an injunction. The order was simple: stay away from his brother, Ronald Stewart. But prosecutors told the court Robert couldn't follow it.
There's a no contact order with your brother, allegedly, and they said that your brother said you ended up in his home after they had told you not to come around, so.
The prosecution laid out the case with enough detail to convince Judge Hurley that bond needed to be set.
Ronald Stewart was entertaining guests for the holiday. Robert Stewart attacked him by punching him in the chest, knocking him to the floor. The attack was unprovoked, which was witnessed by the two other guests. Ronald Stewart has a serious heart condition, is in fear that his brother Robert will continue to harm him. Defendant Robert Stewart admitted to the battery, stating that his brother Ronald...
For a moment, it seemed like the hearing was over. But then, Robert Stewart makes a bold claim.
I'm a Navy SEAL, sir. I'm a Navy SEAL.
His unexpected statement caught the judge's attention. Judge Hurley leaned in, curious, and began asking questions.
I'm a Navy SEAL.
And now he's curious.
Are you really?
Yes, I am, sir.
Where did
Retired
you go?
50 years.
Where'd you go to?
I went to Hobson University, Kings Point, and then I went to Subic Bay.
The judge paused and decided to test him.
Let me finish. Where did you go to SEAL training? There's only one place in the world you can go to SEAL training. Where's that?
Only one answer could prove the truth. Coronado, California, home to SEAL training. But would Stewart give the right answer?
Subic Bay.
No, you're wrong. That's not it.
Well, okay. Well, all right. Well, I did it for 50 years, so I knew everybody.
Okay, well, just tell me where you
I'm
went
50 years.
Cornered, he quickly backtracked.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's Coronado, California, San Diego. That's the only place that we can go to SEAL training.
All right, thank you. Very good weather there.
With the theatrics aside, Stewart pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 210 days in jail, with credit for time served. But there's a twist. When court officials reached out for confirmation, the Navy replied they could neither confirm nor deny if Stewart had ever been a SEAL, which is why Judge Hurley closed with a safety net just in case.
Good luck, sir. Thank you for your service.
Claiming to be a Navy SEAL right before a judge is one bold move. But even bolder is when the defendant joins his own hearing, while actively violating his bond.
Judge Simpson was handling other cases.
This is 36-year-old Anthony Lane, appearing virtually before District Court Judge Cedric Simpson in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He's facing 2 felony charges, one for possession of meth or ecstasy, and another for possession of narcotics like cocaine or heroin. At first, it looks like just another routine hearing.
Please state your name for the court.
Anthony Lane. Good morning, sir.
How you doing? A waiver for continued plea negotiations and resolution in circuit.
You understand you'll not have that hearing and you'll proceed to circuit court for further resolution.
Everything seems to move smoothly until the prosecutor drops a surprising statement that changes the tone of the entire proceeding.
Your Honor, I'll agree to waive, but I do want to make a statement on the record. It appeared that earlier in this time block that Mr. Lane was rolling a blunt. and might have been smoking.
Now, recreational marijuana may be legal in Michigan, but Lane is out on bond, and one of his strict conditions is zero drug use. And here's where things go off the rails. Lane, seated in a vehicle, glances nervously out the window, but forgets one crucial detail. Everyone on Zoom can see him. While the judge moves on to other cases, Lane openly smokes a blunt right in front of the camera. The court staff notices immediately and alerts the prosecution. With this revelation, Lane's attorney scrambles, asking for an adjournment.
Your Honor, given that information, I guess we need to adjourn the PCC so Mr. Lane and I can speak further before we wait.
Yeah. I think that might be wise.
But Judge Simpson isn't letting it slide.
When's the last time you tested?
2 weeks ago.
You were supposed to be testing 2 times per week.
I tested back to back.
Okay, but
as it turns out, Lane has already failed to show up for his scheduled drug testing that week, and the judge is losing his patience.
You're to report to Community Corrections today for a test.
Lane tries to explain it away with excuses.
Your Honor, I have no ride today.
This time, though, the judge stands firm and refuses to back down.
Well, you better find somebody to get you a ride down here. I'm ordering a test. You're the one that brought this on yourself by what you did. So I'm ordering a test today.
Okay,
if you don't test today, I'm going to be issuing a warrant to have you picked up.
Just as the court prepares to move on, Lane makes yet another mistake. Still logged into the Zoom call, he lets out a laugh.
You keep laughing, Mr. Lane. I don't think you want to do that. Not with me. You better take yourself off before you think things are too funny.
The judge catches it instantly, and Lane scrambles to walk it back.
Thank you.
I wasn't laughing at you, sir.
Yeah.
The hearing ends, but that wasn't the last of Lane. He missed his next drug test, failed to appear at his following hearing, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Anthony Lane's blunt-smoking stunt showed stunning disregard for the court. But the next Lane on this list committed an act so cold and devastating, his sentencing would go down as one of the most disturbing moments ever seen in a courtroom.
Saying pull the trigger to kill your son, love you.
This is TJ Lane, a 17-year-old high school student standing trial for aggravated murder after unleashing gunfire inside Chardon High School in Ohio, an attack that left 3 students dead and others severely injured. On the morning of February 27, 2012, Lane walked into the school cafeteria and opened fire on his classmates without warning. Within seconds, chaos erupted. Students dove under tables, sprinted for exits, and frantically called 911 as the sound of gunfire echoed through the halls.
911, where's your emergency?
We just had a shooting at our school. We need to get out of here. Oh my
okay,
God.
okay, ma'am, we got a school shooting. Ma'am, what school?
Chardon High School.
Chardon High School?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you need to shoot how many?
I saw him take out 2, and then I was gone. I was out of there.
Okay, were the students still alive?
I didn't know, ma'am. I didn't even check. I just got out of there as fast as I could.
Okay, and who was the shooter?
His name is Thomas Lane.
The rampage ended when assistant football coach Frank Hall confronted Lane, chasing him out of the building. Police arrested him shortly after without resistance, but the devastation was irreversible.
Sitting in that room in shock, as we all comforted one another, I heard a police officer outside of the window say that they suspected TJ Lane. When those words hit me, I shook and cried and denied that all this.
That day, 3 young lives were lost. 16-year-old Daniel Parmertor, 17-year-old Russell King Jr., and 16-year-old Demetrius Hewlin, who later died at the hospital. Another student, Nick Walsack, was left permanently paralyzed. All of them were Lane's peers, and one had recently begun dating his ex-girlfriend.
Prosecutors have said publicly that TJ Lane chose his targets at random. But investigators tell CBS News that he knew his alleged victims well, and that one of the key factors that may have led to the shooting was that Lane's girlfriend had broken up with him the week before and started dating one of the boys he allegedly killed.
Prosecutors charged Lane as an adult with 3 counts of aggravated murder. As the case unfolded, disturbing details surfaced. Classmates described him as cold and detached, while reports painted a picture of a troubled home life marked by an abusive father with a criminal history and a mother largely absent.
He'd be sitting there, by himself and everything. And, I feel like I failed as a friend because I should have, at least gone up to him and said, how was your day? How are you doing and everything?
Initially, Lane pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. But once a court declared him competent to stand trial, he shifted course, pleading guilty to all charges in an attempt to avoid the death penalty.
Then, as to count 1, do you plead guilty to on or about February 27, 2012 at Geauga County, Ohio, purposefully and with prior calculation and design causing the death of Demetrius Hewlett, being aggravated murder? Yes.
Yet, the most haunting moment came not during the shooting, but inside the courtroom at sentencing. As grieving families prepared their victim impact statements, Lane staged one final act of cruelty.
This is the case of the State of Ohio against Thomas M. Lane case.
He revealed a plain white undershirt, scrawled with a single word in black marker.
Thank you, Your Honor. To my left is Nicholas Burling.
The same word he had worn across his chest on the day of the massacre.
Feeling sick or ill or anything like that? No, just cold. Okay, we're gonna get you some dry clothes to change into, okay?
And after hearing the emotional pleas of the victims' families, devastated by the massacre,
I will never get to see my baby brother graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get married, have children. I will never be an aunt, and my children will never know their uncle.
Lane delivered a chilling response that stunned the entire courtroom.
Saying pull the trigger that killed your son, memory. Love you.
TJ Lane showed no remorse even when in court with the family of the people he murdered. But how does that compare to the case of a defendant who attacked her own attorney?
Stop it.
This is Taylor Shabuznes, a 25-year-old convicted killer, standing in a Wisconsin courtroom, facing charges for one of the most gruesome murders in the state's history. According to authorities, on February 23, 2022, Taylor murdered her boyfriend, 24-year-old Shad Therian, during what began as a drug-fueled sexual encounter. The two had taken meth together, and then Taylor strangled Shad during sex, decapitated his body, sexually assaulted the corpse, and dismembered him with a bread knife. When Shad's mother returned home and went down into the basement, she discovered her son's severed head and immediately called 911.
Pretty positive my son's head is in a bucket, in my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
What did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
Police arrived to find a scene straight out of a horror film. Blood outside the home, bloody footprints, and Shad's remains stuffed into plastic totes, bags, and boxes. And then, in a bucket, they found his severed head. Shabuznes was found and arrested without resistance. In interrogation, she confessed, casually admitting she strangled Shad with a chain while high on meth.
Like we were smoking the right? And then I'm terrible at explaining things, so let's see here. And then here comes the chain, right? And then he put it around his neck.
She explained how she dismembered his body, placed some parts in her van, others in the basement. And when asked where the rest were, her response was chillingly indifferent.
Drained his head. Well, like, I saw his blood out in the bucket, but then there's still blood in this bucket because it's coming out of the head. Should have took the brains out, but I didn't. And then
In court, investigators recounted the nightmare in graphic detail, testifying that Shad's severed head was found in a bucket inside the home.
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had in fact found
a human head in the bucket. And then we started to notify a supervisor and then ask for additional units.
But if the evidence was already beyond belief, Taylor still had more shocks in store. Because in the middle of court, she suddenly lunged. Not at prosecutors, not at the judge, but at her own attorney. Her lawyer stumbled back in shock, barely escaping as deputies wrestled with Taylor, who resisted furiously against being restrained.
Stop it. Rachel, call.
The next time she appeared in court, she was bound in shackles and flanked by deputies who never let their guard down. In July 2023, Taylor Schabusiness was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault.
First verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information, dated this date, July 26, 2023, signed by the foreperson.
Her sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Intentional homicide as a repeater, it's a Class A felony. Going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision. I believe that's...
Taylor might have attacked her own lawyer, but what happens when it is the judge who does the attacking? And this is a circuit courtroom in Brevard County, Florida, where Judge John Murphy is presiding over a routine hearing. Across from him stands public defender Andrew Weinstock, representing a client charged with assault and resisting arrest. It starts like any other day at the Moore Justice Center. The docket is packed, the calendar is overloaded, and Judge Murphy is determined to keep things moving. He pushes for the defendant to waive his right to a speedy trial, a move that would clear space on the calendar.
Public defender, what do you want to do?
But they filed?
They have.
I'm not waiving.
But Weinstock refuses. He stands firm, protecting his client's constitutional rights.
I'm not waiving. You want to set it for trial, set it for trial.
That simple act of resistance strikes a nerve. The judge doesn't like the pushback.
If I had a rock, I would throw it at you right now. Stop pissing me off. Just sit down.
The courtroom falls silent. All eyes shift between the bench and the defense table. Weinstock doesn't flinch.
I don't need your help.
No, you know what? I'm the public defender. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to stand and represent my clients.
Then, from the bench, comes a line no one expects to hear in a courtroom.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just beat your ass.
The challenge is thrown. And shockingly, they act on it. Judge Murphy steps down from the bench, storms through a side door, and Weinstock follows. The cameras don't catch what happens next, but the courtroom could still hear it, the unmistakable sounds of a physical fight echoing from the hallway. Moments later, Judge Murphy returns alone, calm, composed, as though nothing happened.
I will catch my breath eventually. Man, I'm an old man.
And then, in a move that stuns everyone present, he resumes court business, proceeding with the cases without defense counsel present.
Your choices, considering there's probably going to be a changeover in personnel, are setting it for trial June 9th, or if you were wanting to waive speedy, we would set it for July 15th.
I would like to get it done as fast as possible.
That doesn't help me.
But the incident doesn't vanish into silence. It's investigated by the Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission, and their findings are damning. A judge had threatened violence against a defense attorney, engaged in a physical fight, and then carried on without legal representation for a defendant. The scandal reaches the Florida Supreme Court. Their decision is swift and unanimous. Judge John Murphy is permanently removed from the bench. As for Andrew Weinstock, the public defender who stood his ground, he later resigns from his position, leaving behind one of the most infamous confrontations ever caught in an American courtroom. Judge Murphy's fistfight with a public defender was one moment no one was ever going to forget. But how does that compare to this case when a furious defendant launches himself at the judge? This is Deobra Redden, standing in a Las Vegas courtroom, facing sentencing on charges of attempted battery.
Mr. Redden, is there anything you want to say on your own behalf before I pronounce sentence?
So basically, I would like to tell the courts, everyone here.
The verdict was already in. He'd been found guilty. Now came the part that mattered most, his punishment. Redden pleaded for mercy, insisting he didn't deserve prison time. He begged for probation, claiming he had changed. His tone was urgent, almost desperate. But Judge Holthus remained composed, unimpressed by the performance.
Like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that, like, I shouldn't be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history?
She pressed him on his lengthy criminal record. Redden faltered, unable to justify his past. The judge's words were firm, reminding him that actions have consequences. And his history spoke louder than his pleas.
But I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else, because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
And then, without warning, the courtroom erupted. Redden launched himself at the bench in a shocking burst of violence. Security officers and court staff leapt into action, wrestling him to the ground as chaos filled the room. Judge Holthus, visibly shaken, was quickly helped to her feet. The room, stunned into silence, bore the weight of what had just happened. An attack on the very authority of the court. Just 1 week later, Redden was back in the same courtroom. Only this time, the scene was different. Heavy security lined every corner.
Mr. Almasi's here now. Good morning.
Judge Holthus delivered his sentence with clarity and restraint. She made it known. Her decision had been reached before the attack, and nothing Redden did that day would alter it.
In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court does now sentence you, in addition to the $25 administrative assessment fee, $150 DNA fee, the $3 DNA administrative assessment fee, and $250 indigent defense fee, 19 to 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
Deobra Redden's attack remains one of the craziest moments in the courtroom. But in this case, the outburst was so disruptive that the judge ripped off his robe and jumped into the fight.
We'll make it 93. You can think about it. All right.
This is Jacob Larson, appearing before a court in Jackson County, Michigan for a protection order hearing. Larson stood accused of stalking a woman, showing up at her workplace, leaving flowers, and even posting a video online where he falsely claimed the two were dating. From the very start, Judge McBain's patience was thin. This wasn't Larson's first time in court, and he had already been ordered to stay away from the woman.
It's like this fatal attraction kind of stuff that I warned you about last time. I told you to just leave her alone. She was a classmate of yours. She apparently has no interest in seeing you.
I want her to tell me to leave her alone.
But Larson had his own version of events. He pushed back, even turning his accusations toward the judge. The more he spoke, the more McBain's frustration grew.
You know what? I told you to leave her alone. And apparently that didn't get through loud and clear. So today, you're going to jail for 3 days. Right? And the next time you violate it, you're going to jail
You and her are all
You know what? You gotta...
Finally, the judge had enough. He sentenced Larson to 3 days in jail. But instead of quieting down, Larson only grew more defiant. And with every word, the judge kept increasing the jail time.
Buddy, y'all get along. Y'all are 45 days county jail. 93 days in the county jail. You want to go for a year? One more word out of you, it'll be a year of county.
Over Facebook.
Stand up. You're going to jail for a year in the county. 365 days county jail. Can't do it.
Then came the breaking point. Judge McBain ordered the court officer to cuff him. That's when chaos broke loose inside the courtroom.
Tase his ass right now.
In a move almost never seen from the bench, Judge McBain ripped off his robe and jumped into the scuffle himself, helping hold Larson down.
That's enough for you, all right? We'll make it 93. You can think about it, all right?
Over Facebook. He's over.
Well, so I know her.
That's not fair.
Larson was finally restrained, cuffed, and taken away to serve not 3 days, but nearly 3 months behind bars. Jacob Larson's clash with Judge McBain ended in a rare scene of a robed judge in a brawl. But in this next case, a killer cannot stand the repercussions of his actions in court.
That's you, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
Look at it, please, sir.
Yes.
All right, proceed. Stop.
This is Martez Abram, standing trial for a brutal act of workplace revenge that left 2 men dead and an entire community reeling. It all began in July 2019 inside a Walmart in South Haven, Mississippi. After getting into an altercation with a coworker, Abram escalated things dangerously, pulling a knife. He was immediately suspended, but he didn't let it go. Days later, Abram came back, this time with a deadly plan. Armed with a handgun, he stormed the store and opened fire. Within minutes, 2 store managers, Anthony Brown and Brandon Gals, were gunned down. A police officer was injured in the chaos, and Abram himself was shot before finally being taken into custody.
This morning, South Haven, Mississippi became the latest community to deal with the aftermath of a deadly active shooter situation at this Walmart supercenter on South Crest Parkway.
No city in America is immune to this. Unfortunately, it's sad, but it just shows how important the training is.
Family tells Local 24 News the shooting killed 2 Walmart managers, Anthony Brown and Brandon Gales. It devastated dozens of their co-workers, some who needed medical attention after.
Wounded from the shootout, Abram's first court appearance was from a hospital bed.
South Haven, Mississippi making national headlines at this hour. 2 Walmart employees killed, an officer hurt this morning. The shooter just identified, recently suspended by Walmart.
Prosecutors wasted no time painting the attack as cold and calculated. They showed surveillance footage of Abram mercilessly firing on unarmed co-workers. And on the stand, Abram himself admitted what he had done.
Stop. That's you, isn't it, sir?
Yes.
Look at it, please, sir.
Yes.
All right, proceed. Stop. Mr. Gale is on the floor going down to this point, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay, and that's you shooting him, right?
Yes.
Okay, proceed. Stop it. Look at the screen, sir.
Yes.
That's you shooting him?
Yes.
And you admit that you shot him in cold blood?
Yes.
When the jury returned, the verdict was clear: guilty. And their recommendation was the ultimate punishment, the death penalty.
And Rudy, it took jurors less than an hour to find Abram guilty on all 3 counts, 2 for capital murder and 1 for attempted murder.
Before the judge made it official, the courtroom gave space to the victims' families. They stood one by one, delivering heartbreaking statements about the lives stolen from them.
The most loving and caring, hardworking young man that I know. And he truly loved his family. Brandon will work long hours at Walmart, but it's also the place where he lost his life. Christian family. And Mr. Martez, God requires us to forgive you for what you did.
I feel the consequences of your actions on July the 30th, 2019 should cost you your life on this earth. But they do not have to cost you your eternity. God will forgive you of your sins, and He is the only one that can save your soul.
Then, the judge handed down the sentence: death. Abram stood motionless, head bowed, as the court declared him Mississippi's newest resident on death row. Outside, the district attorney faced reporters, calling the decision justice served.
Sentence for his deadly attack at a South Haven Walmart. The families of both victims took to the stands to read statements before the judge handed down her sentence. Here is what some of them had to say.
I feel the consequences of your actions on July the 30th, 2019.
Martez Abram broke down when the footage of his killing was played in court. But how does that compare to a teenage defendant who sparked a full-on brawl in court with just one gesture? This is Victor Rivas, just 17 years old, standing inside a San Antonio courtroom. His charge was first-degree murder. It all began in May 2022, when police were called to a home in Bexar County. What they discovered was devastating. Near the front door lay 15-year-old Ethan Soto, riddled with bullets, bleeding out just steps from safety. Investigators quickly determined this wasn't random violence. It was targeted. Evidence pointed to simmering drug-related feuds among local teens, grudges that spiraled into cold-blooded execution, and every lead circled back to one name, Victor Rivas. He was arrested and charged with murder. When Rivas appeared for a pre-trial hearing, the atmosphere in court was already tense. In the gallery sat Ethan's family, staring down the teenager accused of stealing their son's life. The silence carried weight like a fuse waiting for a spark. And then, that spark came. In the middle of proceedings, Rivas made a gesture. Some said it looked like a gang sign. Others saw it as a dismissive wave aimed at the grieving family. Whatever it was, the effect was immediate. The gallery erupted.
First at 5, family members of a murdered teenager accused of attacking the man on trial for it right in the middle of a Bexar County courtroom.
Ethan's loved ones surged forward, shouting, lunging at the teen defendant as chaos swallowed the courtroom. Deputies and court officers scrambled to intervene, but the eruption spread like wildfire. By the time order was restored, Rivas himself had been dragged into the brawl. He suffered visible injuries before deputies pulled him out, not to punish him, but to keep him alive. Fast forward to April 2025. The trial concluded, the dust settled, but the verdict was clear. Victor Rivas was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of Ethan Soto, with another 10 years added for evading arrest in a vehicle. Victor Rivas's smirk ignited chaos as grieving families stormed toward him. But what happens when the defendant herself is the one who lunges, this time straight at the judge? This is Melissa Hardwick, standing before the Russell and Wayne County Family Court in Kentucky, where her ex-husband had filed for a protective order. At first, everything was routine. Her ex calmly laid out the reasons he sought protection. But then, in an instant, the calm cracked wide open. Melissa suddenly erupted, cutting off the testimony with her own furious outburst.
Personal life, it's none of your business.
The judge tried to rein her in, issuing a sharp warning that she'd be held in contempt if she didn't calm down. But instead of backing off, Melissa pushed harder.
Nothing to do with
Miss Hardwick,
no.
You will be held in contempt of this court if you become disruptive.
The judge had enough. He ruled her in contempt on the spot and sentenced her to 10 days in jail. But the drama inside that Kentucky courtroom was far from finished.
Killed in a Las Vegas drive-by shooting. Shakur's death at the age of 25 remained a mystery for...
You will serve 10 days for contempt of court.
As deputies closed in to escort her out, Melissa snapped. She lunged straight at the judge.
Go now.
Court officers scrambled, dragging her out as chaos rippled through the room.
Get off of me!
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
And for that one reckless act, Melissa didn't just lose her freedom, she gained a new set of charges. The scene was so disruptive that a new judge had to be brought in to preside over the case. In the end, Melissa Hardwick was sentenced to 120 days in jail for contempt, threats, and disrupting the court, a punishment that matched the fury of her outburst. Melissa Hardwick's attack on a judge shocked the courtroom, but Sidney Newsom took it even further, disrupting the court so much that the judge stepped down from the bench to restrain him himself.
This is Sidney Newsom, a Mississippi man appearing before Pike County Justice Court on domestic violence charges. On the bench that day was Southern District Judge Aubrey Rimes.
At first, the hearing unfolded like any other routine proceeding. But that calm wouldn't last. When Newsom was asked to sign a few standard documents, he hesitated, then flat out refused. What should have been a simple formality quickly escalated into a heated argument. A deputy stepped forward to remove him from the courtroom, and that's when Sidney snapped. He first lunged for a stack of papers, snatching them off the desk and hurling them directly at the judge. Then, slipping free from the officer's grip, he reached for a telephone and launched it across the table at Judge Rimes. That was the breaking point for the judge. He rose from the bench, stepped down, and did what few judges would ever consider. He grabbed Sidney himself, slamming him against the desk and pinning him down until deputies rushed in to finally drag him out of the courtroom. Sidney Newsom's tantrum ended with a judge physically intervening. But what happens when a sentencing hearing turns violent, not between defendant and judge, but between grieving families themselves? This is Frank DeLeon Jr., a 19-year-old man on trial for the murder of 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez. On January 11, 2022, in Houston, Texas, Diamond left her house to walk her dog. A simple neighborhood routine she had done countless times before. But this time, someone was waiting. Her boyfriend, Frank DeLeon Jr., had been lying in ambush just steps away. Their relationship had unraveled after Diamond discovered his infidelity, and she had ended things. But Frank wasn't ready to let go. When she passed, he opened fire. Reports say Diamond was shot 22 times before collapsing on the sidewalk. By the time detectives arrived, she was gone. Investigators quickly identified DeLeon as the prime suspect, and within days, he was under arrest. But if the murder was shocking, what happened in court was something no one could have predicted. During sentencing, the courtroom was already heavy with grief. Diamond's mother took the stand for her victim impact statement.
As you mentioned, this pure chaos lasted several minutes, and it all happened shortly after the victim's mother gave her impact statement where she called Frank DeLeon Jr. a monster.
But she didn't stay there. She suddenly stepped down, heading toward DeLeon himself.
Cameras were rolling as Diamond Alvarez.
Deputies intercepted her before she could reach him, but no one saw what came next.
His mother began walking towards DeLeon. A bailiff holds her back. That's when the situation escalates.
DeLeon's mother jumped into the fray, lunging at Diamond's mother. The two women clashed violently as another member of Diamond's family joined in. What began as grief turned into an all-out brawl inside the courtroom. Shouts, fists, and raw fury filled the room as deputies struggled to restore order right in front of the judge. Eventually, the chaos was contained and the hearing had to be postponed. Outside, Diamond's mother addressed reporters, her grief unchanged by the violence.
Wrong of me, that was wrong of us, because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate, because I want my daughter back.
When court resumed, DeLeon accepted a plea deal. In exchange for avoiding a trial, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Frank DeLeon's sentencing spiraled into an all-out brawl between families. But Christopher Teal took courtroom chaos to another level, attacking his own lawyer in the middle of a hearing.
They are now stipulating that Mr. T.
This is Christopher Teal, a man charged with first-degree sexual assault and unlawful imprisonment in Seattle, Washington. In May of 2018, Teal, who was homeless at the time, followed a woman into a restroom at a Volkswagen dealership and violently attacked her. But before the assault could escalate further, dealership employees rushed in and pulled him off, stopping what could have been a deadly encounter. He was arrested immediately at the scene. Weeks later, Teal was brought into King County Court for a competency hearing. At first, he almost seemed entertained by the process. With a smirk, he casually stretched his arm toward his own attorney, Reed Birkland, an odd gesture that officers cut off before it could go any further. And then, out of nowhere, chaos erupted.
That they are now stipulating that Mr. Tierney.
Detectives wrestled him down, slapped cuffs on him, and pulled a spit hood over his head before dragging him out of the courtroom. His attorney, physically unharmed but clearly humiliated, withdrew from the case right then and there. When Teal returned to court for his next appearance, officials weren't taking any chances. He was strapped tightly to a chair, unable to lunge or lash out. But even restrained, Teal seemed less worried about the charges he was facing and more concerned about something else entirely: his mugshot.
Since the last hearing,
this time strapped to a rolling chair.
new counsel needs to.
His biggest concern is how his hair looked in his mugshot.
I got one question, one thing to say. I'd like to know where the they got that photo of me with my short hair. Because that was on Facebook, and I don't have a Facebook.
All right.
Eventually, a court found him competent to stand trial. He was convicted and sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. Christopher Teal's attack left his lawyer humiliated and the courtroom in shock. But here's another defendant who didn't just lash out, he openly dared the court to execute him. This is Keith Ferguson, a 40-year-old man from Mecosta County, Michigan, standing accused of murdering his estranged wife, Tiffany Ferguson, and her father, James Weber. It all began in November 2014. Ferguson arrived at Tiffany's Cold Springs Township home and, in front of their 4 children, shot her dead. But the horror didn't stop there. After killing Tiffany, Ferguson gathered the children, loaded them into his car, and drove them to Tiffany's father's house. There, he shot and killed 63-year-old James Weber. The traumatized children somehow managed to escape. But Ferguson wasn't finished. He fled the scene and forced his way into the home of a random woman, taking her hostage at gunpoint.
Our central dispatch received a phone call from the suspect telling us that he had taken a hostage and was in another location.
He barricaded himself inside, sparking a tense 7-hour standoff with police, filled with threats, negotiations, and demands.
Willing to speak, and they had a dialect going. That he would get tired and tell the negotiators that he was going to hang up and call me back later, and so it went like that on and off all through the night.
Investigators later revealed his motive. Tiffany had filed for divorce, and in Ferguson's twisted view, her decision to leave him was a death sentence, not for himself, but for her and her father. At arraignment, Ferguson showed no remorse. If anything, he displayed open contempt for the process. He repeatedly interrupted the judge and refused to follow even the simplest court instructions.
Mr. Ferguson, can I get you to stand up there at the podium, please? All right, I need to have you raise your right hand for me. Okay, all right.
Just put me back in my cell.
Okay, stop.
When prosecutors pushed for the maximum bond, citing the brutality of his crimes, the judge didn't need much convincing.
We have two murders. We have issues of flight, home invasion, kidnapping. The defendant is facing life offenses. I think a high bond is warranted under the circumstances to assure the defendant's appearance in court. I am gonna set it as a $10 million bond.
But the real chaos came later, during the proceedings. At first, Ferguson said he would plead guilty. Yet when it came time to recount what happened, he refused.
Okay, well, I'm not getting into any detail of what happened.
If you want to be guilty, you have to say what you did.
I'm not saying all right? Because of the respect and safety of my children, I'm not saying nothing, because they're going to see this. They don't need to hear that.
And when he finally did speak, what came out of his mouth was chilling.
And did you intent to kill him?
Oh, yeah.
And did you think about whether or not you wanted to kill him and make a deliberate choice to do so?
No, yeah. Put half a magazine in that.
During sentencing, Tiffany's friend took the stand, delivering a powerful and heartbreaking victim impact statement that cut through the courtroom.
For all pretrial proceedings, but the judge went against that to make sure Ferguson will be required to show up.
We have two murders. We have issues of flight, home invasion, kidnapping. The defendant is facing life offenses. I think a high bond is warranted under the circumstances to assure the defendant's appearance in court. I am gonna.
When it was Ferguson's turn, he offered no apology. Instead, he stunned the room by asking for the death penalty.
Just sentence me, kill me, whatever. You know, and about the children. You know, they've been through enough.
Okay.
You know, and it would be good for me to, you know, I don't want them to see me.
Before issuing the final sentence, Judge George Mertz had his own words for Ferguson.
You may not meet the clinical definition of insanity, but there's clearly something fundamentally wrong with you. You're incapable of understanding that intentionally depriving an elderly woman of her husband, her mate, her life, 4 children, and her mother, to satisfy your own selfish urges.
In the end, the court sentenced Keith Ferguson to life in prison without the possibility of parole for Tiffany's murder, plus an additional 31 to 60 years for the killing of James Weber.